Queensland Police have proclaimed the shooting of 2 police officers and a civilian in the state's Central Downs region in December as a terrorist attack. After a large-scale investigation, detectives say the killers were Christian extremists prepared for war. Well, joining me live is Dr. Terry Goldsworthy, former detective and criminology expert. Thank you so much for joining us. So, what more can you tell us about this and what police describe as a religiously motivated terrorist attack?
Yeah, it seems to be some kind of group called pre-millennialism. And what they're basically saying is that, Jesus will come back and there'll be a 1,000-year reign of happiness after he returns, his second coming. But prior to that, there'll be a period of turbulence within society. So they seem to have been fairly invested in this. I've never heard of it myself before. The information from the police is that there's no one else that they're aware involved. But no doubt that this has been flagged now. I guess that they will be looking more carefully at these groups to see what linkages the trains had. So they'll be going through their social media accounts, their communications, etc., and trying to identify if there's anyone else they need to be aware of or pay attention to.
And police believe it was an attack directed at police with strong evidence of preparation and planning.
Yeah, look, it was interesting to see that they called it a terrorist attack yesterday. I have some issues with that. To call it a terrorist attack, it needs to fit the definitions that we have. So it has to be advancing a political, religious or ideological cause. We certainly have the harm element there, the 3 terrible deaths that they inflicted. Then we have to have the advancement of a cause. Now, you may say that that's present now with the religious linkage that we've seen. But where I think it may struggle is showing an intent to try and influence the state or, influence the public by creating terror, etc. And by that I'm saying this is a reactive action that we saw, not the usual proactive action where, like Man Monis, who went into Lint Cafe, had his ISIS flags and was deliberately propagating a message and trying to intimidate the government into action or inaction. So this is a very different scenario. So it'll go to the coroner's court and the coroner will need to make a determination, as they do, as to whether this should be called a terrorist attack or not. But I certainly think there's room for debate as to whether it does fit within the definition.
And Terry, what more can you tell us about Christian extremist ideology?
Well, certainly, most of the focus has been on Islamic radicalism, etc. But, Christian ideology also has elements of people who will be drawn to it and can be radicalised just as easily. So I think we're now seeing our intelligence agencies focus on these Christian ideologies, without linking them, but they're also looking at far-right ideologies now, which we've seen rise in prominence more recently. So, we've had a focus on, Islamic-type terrorist organisations, and the overall majority are listed as Islamic organisations in Australia's terrorist list. We're now seeing, I guess, a wider scope coming in, looking at other groups that may be involved that we need to get in front of before they can actually commit any acts of terrorism.
And police are saying that they are quite confident that there is no evidence to suggest anyone else in Australia assisted in this particular attack. But are you concerned for other situations like this to occur if they're now not already or certainly in the future?
Well, yeah, look, there's always room for concern. They've got the FBI and working with them, etc. There was some linkage to some people over in the US who the FBI are now paying attention to. So I think all of those leads will be run out to ensure that there's no further threats that need to be monitored. It's interesting. There seems to be a deep hatred of the police from the trains. That seemed to be a core message coming out of the police message briefings this week. Transferring hatred and getting into a terrorism act is quite different. Plenty of people don't like the police, so whether it fits within that terrorist box will be something, again, the coroner will need to look at.
And what needs to be done, in your opinion, on gun laws?
Well, I think the proposal for a national gun register is a good one. At the moment, we do have some national registers, but they're lacking in detail. The Australian Federal Police Association has said that they need more comprehensive records, etc., to assist police in their investigations. And I think that's quite reasonable to request that. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have a national gun register so that police in any state can access information about anyone who comes into that state. For instance, in this matter, we know now that one of the trains had come over from New South Wales in a vehicle with weapons in the car. He'd thrown weapons into a creek. The police were aware of that. And, my understanding is the police were actually going there to arrest one of the trains for that activity. So, it would have been, and I guess in hindsight, it would have been much easier for the police to be able to access every bit of information in relation to trains, access to firearms and history of firearms in the state. And that's what the new register should allow them to do, I would hope.
Dr. Terry Goldsworthy, thank you so much.
Thank you.